Hi, this is Rob with Federal Finance CPE. Today we're talking about internal controls in the federal government. This is Module 1, Orientation and Course Roadmap. Let me show you why internal controls matter. I've worked with agencies where documentation quality varies drastically. On one end, I've seen SF 133 to 132 reconciliations that are detailed, tick-marked, and every difference researched, documented, resolved. Clear explanations, supporting work papers. You can see what was reviewed, when, by whom, and what adjustments, if any, were made. On the other end, I've seen reconciliation reports that have been generated but not saved anywhere with tick marks. The system produces the report. Maybe somebody looks at it. Maybe they don't. There's no evidence of review, no sign-off, no follow-up on differences, nothing. When auditors ask, how do you know your interfaces work correctly? The answer is we run the report. But if you can't provide evidence that somebody analyzed it, do you really have a control that's functioning? That's a gap that's getting agencies in trouble. And it's exactly what the new Green Book in 2025 addresses with stronger documentation and monitoring expectations. That gap between good controls and failing controls comes down to understanding three things: the law, the standards, and the policies that govern federal internal controls. We're going to cover FMFIA, that's the law, the Green Book, those are the standards, and OMB A-123, that's the policy. Together, these define what effective internal controls look like in the federal government and how you are part of it. So why do internal controls matter to you? Well, three reasons. First, your work feeds directly into your agency's internal control system. Even if your job title doesn't say internal control specialist, you are already part of it, whether you like it or not. Second, strong controls protect you, your agency, and your program by enabling effective execution and compliance with laws and regulations. Third, there's a new Green Book that was released in 2025 with important changes that you need to know. Let's look at the internal control chain. It goes from laws to standards to policy. We start with the law, FMFIA, the Federal Managers Financial Integrity Act of 1982. It requires federal agencies to establish and maintain internal controls to prevent waste, misuse, and misappropriation of government resources. It mandates that agencies assess and report on control effectiveness and ensure their accounting systems conform to relevant standards. This report on internal control effectiveness is commonly called the assurance statement. Next, the standards. The Green Book, formerly titled Standards for Internal Control in the Federal Government, created at FMFIA's direction and managed by GAO, the Government Accountability Office, Congress's independent auditor. The Green Book is a key document for those who assess and those who design internal controls in the federal government. It helps your agency determine what they need to do, how to do it, and really what to aim for. Last, the policy, OMB A-123. This comes from the Office of Management and Budget, the White House office that oversees how federal agencies execute the president's priorities. A-123 is a specific guidance document, what OMB calls circulars, that directs executive branch agencies, cabinet-level departments like Treasury and Interior, independent agencies like NASA. It doesn't apply to legislative branch entities like the GAO or Library of Congress or judicial branch agencies. A-123 directs agencies to improve effectiveness and efficiency through internal controls and enterprise risk management. You know, the process of identifying, assessing, and managing risks across your entire agency, not just individual programs. Take a second and think, which of these three have you seen in your agency? If you've seen OMB A-123 in an email, a meeting agenda, or your agency's internal control documentation, you've seen the policy layer in action. If you've heard someone mention FMFIA requirements during a budget season, that's the law. And if an auditor referenced the Green Book in a finding or recommendation, those are the standards. You're probably more familiar with this framework than you realized. Let's focus on the Green Book, Standards for Internal Control in the Federal Government. It's written for federal agency management and used to guide the design and operation of controls. State and local governments can also use these standards if they like. Financial statement auditors, OIG auditors, and internal control assessors use the standards as a criteria when evaluating your internal control system. The standard breaks down different components in a framework you can use to determine what an effective internal control system needs and how your current system stacks up to those needs. So what's new in 2025? And why does it matter? In 2025, GAO released an updated Green Book, the first revision since 2014. This update went into effect in FY 2026, which means these standards are in effect right now. Here's what that means practically. When your agency conducts its internal control assessment or financial statement audit, your auditors and assessors will use the 2025 Green Book as their guide. If you're still referencing the old 2014 version in your documentation or thinking, you're risking gaps in your internal control system. The three main changes you need to know are: first, increasing expectations around documentation and monitoring. We'll cover what good enough documentation looks like under the new standards. Second, stronger emphasis on fraud risk and proper payments. That's when the government pays the wrong amount to the wrong person or for the wrong reason. Information security and change management. Third, some of the 17 principles have been clarified or expanded, which means your agency may need to update how it demonstrates compliance. Some of the 17 internal control principles have been clarified or expanded, which means your agency may need to update how it demonstrates compliance. Before we go deeper, I want to give you a framework to make this concrete. Think of an internal control system like a bakery with 5 key elements. Ingredients are your data. Milk, eggs, flour. Data is the basis for everything. You must protect it and ensure it's complete and accurate before use. You wouldn't want to use milk that went bad and you're baking a cake. Next is equipment. And this is your technology, ovens and refrigerators, your IT systems. A refrigerator needs to operate consistently, right? When you're baking, not just when you're baking a cake. You know, that milk that we mentioned before, your data, it's not going to keep if your refrigerator fails. The same with your technology. Your data won't be reliable if your IT isn't functioning. Now we have recipes. Those are your control activities, step-by-step processes. If a recipe is written correctly and you follow it, you get a great cake, right? If you don't follow it, you might not get some great results. Same with controls. A perfect control design, not followed, won't give you the results you need. And that brings us to people or bakers. Those are the people who operate your controls. We work in a human world, so things can always happen, the human element. And this is where people, you and your coworkers fit into the internal control framework. And we have taste testers. Let's call these similar to your auditors and internal control assessors. These are people testing your work, validating that what you did, validating that what should have happened did happen. Same thing with a cake, making sure that the cake came out to the high levels of expectation that you have. This plays a big role when we talk about OMB A-123 and the role of internal control assessors. We'll keep using this framework throughout our series just to keep an analogy to make it easy for anybody to understand, even if you're brand new to internal controls. So here's how we're going to structure this course series. 4 phases. Phase 1 lays our foundation, legal and policy. We'll cover FMFIA, the Green Book, and OMB A-123 in detail. Phase 2 is going to cover internal control fundamentals, some core concepts and basic ideas that'll help you see internal controls in action at your agency. Phase 3 is going to dive into the 5 components of an internal control system and the 17 principles outlined in the Green Book, with examples and discussion for each. And Phase 4 shows you how OMB A-123 gets implemented at your agency. You'll see it in action and you'll see it in action. Before we move to the next module, I have an activity for you. Try this at your own agency. First, locate your agency's latest assurance statement. This is a statement from your agency head discussing the internal controls environment. You can usually find this in your agency's latest annual financial report, or AFR. Look for the Management Assurances or FMFIA Assurance Statement section. It's typically a one-page letter signed by your agency head, stating whether your agency had issues and giving an overall assessment of internal controls. Second, using our bakery framework, pick a process that you're familiar with at your agency. Maybe it's processing travel. Maybe it's awarding grants or using purchase cards. Think of this as your production line at a bakery. As we go through our exercise, use your process to connect those theoretical ideas that we will discuss to your everyday work. Maybe it's issuing grants or contracts. Use that and think about how internal controls play a role. This will help you as we work through the series. In the next module, we'll take FMFIA, the Green Book, and A-123 and show you exactly where they show up in your agency, in your budget justifications, in your audit reports, and in your daily work. We'll also walk you through how to read your agency's FMFIA assurance statement. Before we continue, please subscribe to our channel for quality federal accounting education. If you'd like one free CPE credit of federal accounting training, visit us at www.federalfinancecpe.com/free. Federal Finance CPE is operated by Persons Consulting, a sponsor registered with NASBA, the National Association of State Boards of Accountancy, so your CPE credits count towards your license. Module 2 starts next, and I'll see you there.